Alright, what's up everybody, back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Yes, we're back, hope you guys having a good one. Today we're going to be talking about the Eastern Conference playing because it's a race. There's a race in there. Not as many teams as it was a little while ago that are in the race, but still a little bit of a race for these conference playing. Tell you about it because honestly, no one really keeps up with it. No one really cares about it anymore. But I'll tell you why in this video. But first, if you do like content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn on notifications, all stuff like that. I really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. I got a lot of shorts up as well. Get ready for April because April I got a new series coming out. And yeah, very excited for next month. But yeah, let's not waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So right now, if you look at the Eastern Conference playing, we have it's sort of set in place right now. Look at the 10 spot, the Bulls. Since Patrick Beverley got there, has been a lot better. They beat the Lakers yesterday. They're 36-38 now. And the teams that are 11-12, the Bulls were around 11-12 for most of the year, most of the last few months until the trade. But you look at the 11-12 seed now. We have the Pacers and the Wizards. Pacers, of course, started the year off amazing. They were like a top 5 team in the East. Look like they're going to be a for sure playoff team. When the Tyrese Halliburton gets injured, they go on a big losing streak. And then ever since then, even when he come back, they just have not looked the same. And now they've fallen to 33-42. And then the Washington Wizards, who were in the play-in for a lot of the year as well. The second half of the season, after All-Star break, they just have not been able to win games consistently. And they have also fallen to 33-42. And now both those teams are 3.5 games behind the Bulls for the 10th spot. Even honestly, the Magic even are in the race with them. The Magic are only a game behind Washington and Indiana. They're on a 3-game win streak. So Orlando has a chance to be better than one of those two teams, which is insane. But yeah, the Bulls are now in there at the 10th spot. And then if you look at the 8 and 9 spot as well, we have Atlanta and Toronto both tied now at 37-38 after the Raptors are on a 2-game win streak. And the Hawks have been inconsistent all year. Very disappointing for both of those teams as well. And then you got the 7th spot, you got the Miami Heat. But honestly, the 6th and 7th spot is actually the most tightest race in the East. That is not like the top 2 or top 3. After that, the Nets and Heat are tied for the 6th and 7th spot. The Nets have the tiebreaker. They're both 40-35. And that's big because, of course, the 6th seed is the cutoff for the play-in. And then the 7th seed, of course, is the first game of the play-in. So you don't want to be 7, you want to be 6. That's the most interesting spot because you have the Miami Heat in there. And Miami Heat are a very big wild card team where if they do end up playing a team like the Sixers, they might have a chance to make the series harder than it actually is. Miami, I keep saying this all the time, but Miami is not this season, is not a regular season team. They're a playoff team. I feel like the last 2 years, regular season they're always solid, pretty okay. And then when it comes to the playoffs, they just turn up and look like a totally different team. So that's why Miami's always a tough team in the playoffs. But yeah, where Miami finishes and who they play is going to be important. But after that, the Nets are, good, but they don't have a star. So maybe in the playoffs it might be a little bit, bad for them. But yeah, that's these Cubs playoff race for right now. But honestly, no one really cares. And there's a few reasons why. Number one, the Western Conference play-in is better because there's more teams involved. There's more chaos going on, and honestly, those teams in the play-in are better than the Eastern Conference teams playing. Like we know, the Eastern Conference. I've said this before, but I feel like the Eastern Conference has the better top-tier talent, like Milwaukee, Boston, Philly. Those are 3 big, great teams, but the West has more depth. The West has like the Lakers, and they're at 9, the Thunder at 10, the Mavs that can actually come out and win. The East doesn't have the depth that the West has. I think when it comes to teams. So that's, I think, one reason. And the Western Conference playoff race has been so close the entire season. Like literally one game, you can go from 5 to 8. Like that's how close it's been. The East hasn't been that close. The Hawks have been 8 for like I feel like the entire year the Hawks have just been 8. Like I don't think the Hawks have moved in the past like 2 months. You know, so there's one reason, and number two, well actually there's three reasons. Now I'm thinking about it. Number two is these teams have been very disappointing. The teams that are in the East that are playing teams weren't really looked at to be, well, most of them weren't really looked at to be playing teams. Like the Miami Heat were the best teams in the East last year and went all the way to the conference finals and didn't really make any big changes. The only change they made was losing PJ Tucker. And now they're all the way down the plane because their depth isn't as good as it used to be. They only can really roll like 6, 7. They only really like 6 players maybe on the team they can trust. They're also not a good 3-point shooting team. They've had some inconsistency on offense, and now they're all the way down the plane. The Atlanta Hawks have been one of the most disappointing teams this season. Making a huge trade to get DeJounte Murray, trying to get back to that conference finals appearance that they had a few years ago, and they've just had a lot of drama. Nate McMillan's gone now. Quinn Snyder's in there. A lot of talk about Trae Young. John Collins randomly is still there for some reason. They've been kind of very up and down. That they win 2, lose 2, win 1, lose 1. Like very just back and forth, very inconsistent this season. And now they're down the play-in, under 500 in the play-in as well, which is not what we expected this Hawks team to be. The Raptors are in the play-in. The Raptors were the 5 seed last year and didn't really make any changes, but it's kind of a similar situation to Miami where their depth just is not good. They did get Jakob, but that hasn't won them games, and they're just very weirdly built. You know, they don't have a lot of spacing. They have kind of the same-ish players all around. They don't have a lot of good spacing. They've been very inconsistent this year, and it's been a tough year for Toronto. And then Chicago's probably the only team that you can see like, okay, yeah, it makes sense they're in the play-in. Even though last year they were one of the top seeds before Alonzo's injury, and then coming into this year they didn't really make any big moves, and Alonzo's still out. And you saw the end of last year, they kind of ended off on a weird bad note. So I guess, yeah, Chicago's the only team that's really makes sense that they're in the play-in, but the other 3 teams are like, they're looked at to be like playoff teams, and even if they are in the play-in, even if, you could be in the play-in, but maybe the top tier of the East is just better. But even then, these 3 teams haven't even looked good. Like, even if the Bucks, Celtics, and Sixers weren't even like going crazy and didn't have 53 wins already, like these teams would still be disappointing. These teams probably wouldn't even move up a little bit because they're still all been very disappointing and still have a lot of problems and flaws in their teams. That's the second reason. The third reason is because, let's be real, let's be honest. The winner of these playing games, the winner of, let's say the Atlanta Hawks will lose to the Heat, but they beat like the Bulls in the second game, or the Raptors in the second game, and they make it to the 8th seed. Hey, you guys get a date with the Milwaukee Bucks. Or the Raptors or the Bulls, you get a date with the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round. And even if you win the 7th seed, you have a date against the Boston Celtics, which honestly is better if you're the Miami Heat. The only team I'm not considering is Miami Heat. If Miami Heat get a match with one of these 2 teams, I think it could be very tough. But the rest of these 3 teams, well, even the Heat have a chance to not even be 7. So let's say the Brooklyn Nets are in there at the 7th spot. Good luck. You guys get a date with the Boston Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks. Do you think any one of those 4, the Nets, Hawks, Raptors, or Bulls, are putting up a fight against Celtics? I mean the Bucks? They might win a game. They could take a game off the Celtics. The Nets could take a game off the Celtics or Bucks, I think. Nets have enough firepower and talent where they can randomly take a game. But do you think the Hawks are putting up a fight against any of those 2 teams? Do you think the Bulls are putting up a fight against any of those teams? Do you think the Raptors, even though they do have size, you think the Raptors are putting up a fight? Are taking them? I think the Raptors could take them to 5. The Nets could take them to 5. I think the Hawks and the Bulls would be lucky if they win a game. Honestly, like that's why, like this playoff, this playing race isn't really that exciting or intense, or people are looking at it because whoever wins these playing games are probably just getting beat by the Bucks and Celtics. Like in the West, you actually have a chance. Like the Lakers at 8 actually have a chance against the Nuggets. You know, the Pelicans having a 5-power, they can take a game off of Nuggets or a Grizzly team. You know, and even you have a chance that you have the Warriors in the play-in. And the Warriors are just won the championship. And even though they don't look as good, they're still the Warriors. They still have Steph Curry in them. Like the teams in the Western Conference play-in actually are like real playoff teams. And they actually have chances to like make the 1-8-2-7 series interesting. The East doesn't have that. Again, like I was saying earlier, the East has more of the top tier talent, but the West has more depth and teams. You know? Yeah, so that's why a lot of people aren't going to keep it up with the Conference playing race, because these teams are just honestly kind of boring. Like the Bulls, Raptors, they've kind of been boring and really disappointing. No one really cares anymore about them this season. And these teams definitely are teams that are going to be making some changes in the offseason. But I mean, at least you get a playoff appearance added to the resume, so that's cool. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you do this content right here, consider subscribing, like, turn notifications, do all the stuff like that. I really appreciate it. Really helps out a lot. And I will see you guys tomorrow.